For chapter 37, this is the quiz 8. If you have this book, remember, don't watch the explanations until you attempt the problems on your own first, and then you can watch for explanations for the best results. So let's go and do number 1. Sarah has a book collection, and about 30% of her books are written by Canadian authors. If she made a pie chart of her books, what would be the size and degrees of the central angle representing the books by Canadian authors? Okay, so it's going to be 30% of a whole circle, because the pie chart is a circle, like the circle graph is sometimes what they're called. So we're talking about 30% of the degrees in a circle would be 360. So we're talking about 30%, which is 0.30 as a decimal, times 360. So when you multiply that out, that's 108. So C. Okay, so then let's go to number 2. So Paul decided to start a college savings account on his 8th birthday. He deposited $600 in the account that day. On each successive birthday, Paul deposits $300 more than the amount he deposited the previous year. After he makes his deposit on his 13th birthday, what is the total amount of money Paul will have deposited into the account? Okay. So, this is an arithmetic sequence because we're adding a certain number each time. We're adding 300, so that's D, the common difference, the number we add each time in our formula for arithmetic sequence. I always, pronounce it weird, sorry. So then, it'd be A of n is equal to A1 plus D to the n times n minus 1 is the formula for an arithmetic sequence. So then what we're going to do is plug in the values that correspond to this formula. So D is going to be 300, and then let's see, 600 would be the initial amount that you start with. And then we have to be careful too, because it's saying that this happened on the 8th birthday. So he's 8 years old, and then we want to know about this would be the 13th birthday. So A of 1, we would have A of 1, and then in between him being 8 and being 13, that would be, so then that would be, hold on, losing my mind. So 8 to 13, hold on, after he makes his deposit on his 13th birthday, yeah, 8 to 13, so then that would be, I'm just trying to make sure, I feel like I'm doing this wrong, hold on, let me just think for a second. 8, because these ones were they're worded where it's the years instead of 1, 2, 3, how it is. I have to think that I'm not reading the words incorrectly. So hold on. So 8 to 13, that would be that 5 years have passed. Yeah, so then you wouldn't think about it in terms of a 1, 2, 3, 4 sequence. It's kind of, well, you kind of would, but you would think about it as you start with the first term A of 1, and then you would say, okay, 5 years have passed, so then you have to get all the way to A of 6. Because you have the first time, and then you have to add on the 5 different years that are passing afterwards. So that's the trick here. You can't do A of 8 or something, because it's not meaning the 8th term in the sequence when it says 8th birthday. That would still be considered you're talking about the first term in the sequence. So now we're going to plug that into the A of n formula, and then after we do that, we can plug it into the S of n formula, which is the sum of the first 6 terms in the sequence. So A of n would be equal to the first term in our list would be 600, and then we would say that it's plus 300 times 6 minus 1, and then all I'm doing is plugging this into the formula, all the information from my problem, and then that would give me that, and this is supposed to be a 6, sorry. A of 6 is equal to 2,100. And then now we can use that to find the sum, because that's going to be the total amount of money that Paul will have deposited in those 6 years, the sum of 6. And then you're just going to plug that into the formula, which the sum formula looks like this for an arithmetic sequence, plus A of n. So all I'm doing is just plugging in 6 for n. So that'd be 6 over 2 times, and then the first term in the sequence would be 600. And whoops, plus A of n, which is 2,100. So then this would just be equal to 3 times, and then that's 2,700. So then when you multiply that, you're going to get 8,100, so J. Everyone says my A's look like a 2. Sorry, guys. That's just how I write my A's. So then let's go to number 3. The solutions for the equation right here are, so this one you would just have to set it equal to the positive and the negative version. So v minus 7 could be positive 13 inside, or it could be negative 13, because the absolute value of 13 equals 13, and the absolute value of negative 13 equals 13. So the inside could be negative 13 or positive 13. So that's why you have to set it up to 2 different equations. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 7 to each side to get v by itself in this problem. So then that's going to be 20. And then we're going to add 7 to each side over here. And then that's going to give us negative 6. So we have 20 and negative 6, which would be B. So let me just get water really quick, guys. Okay, so let's go to number 4. Use the figure below to answer the question. So this is the figure. Assume FG is 26. So this is going to be 26 right here from F to G. And the 2 lines graphed are parallel. If the coordinates for point F are A, comma B, then which of the following is equal to absolute value of A? So I put this, sorry, I'll try to talk a little slower. But just so you know, if I start talking fast again, you can go to YouTube and slow this down when I upload it later. So then what we're going to do now is we're trying to find the absolute value of A, and you might be asking, since this is an ACT book, why'd you put like a free response? That's because I've had in certain cases, even though I tell my students to change their batteries before test day, where their calculators have died. So I think it's a good idea, just because you never know what'll happen, to know how to do it by hand as well. So let's go to, let's see, so we're finding the absolute value of A. Okay. So here I see I have 2 different triangles. So right here, like this triangle right here, there's a right angle right there that forms at the origin, and it goes up by 5, so this side is 5, and it goes to the right by 12, so this is 12. Now, if you've memorized your Pythagorean threes, you would know that this side is 13. If you haven't, you can use Pythagorean theorem to say 5 squared plus 12 squared equals whatever this side is squared and solve for it. But I happen to know that it's already 13, so I'm going to use that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, these are similar triangles. So then I'm going to say that 13 is to 26, because with similar triangles, you can take the ratio of the sides. So 13 is to 26 as 12 is to whatever the absolute value of A is. So like, I like to think about it as small over big equals small over big matching sides. So like the small side that matches the big side is 13 to 26, small over big, matching. And the small side that matches the big side over here would be 12 for small, and the big matching side would be the absolute value of what A is, because this is on the negative part of the the x-axis, sorry. So the absolute value would make it positive. So then now let's go to cross multiplying and solving for the absolute value of A. So this would be 13 times the absolute value of A is equal to 26 times 12. So then you would say, okay, 26 times 12, that's going to be 312. So then you have 13 times absolute value of A is equal to 312. So then you could divide by 13 on each side to get absolute value of A is going to be equal to 24. So that should be the correct answer. So now let's go to number 5. Thank you guys for liking and sharing the live. Share this with your friends if they need free SAT and ACT tutoring, because I do these lives periodically. Or if they need a book, my book is on Amazon, or my books, I have 2. So then let's go to number 5. What is the volume in cubic centimeters of a sphere with a diameter of 6 inches? Okay, so volume of a sphere, the formula for this is going to be volume is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. So we have that the diameter is 6 inches. Now, you'll notice there's no like d, there's no diameter in this formula. It's because we need the radius. Diameter is twice the radius. So that means if this is twice the radius, then the radius would have to be 3, because 2 times 3 would give us 6 for the diameter. So r is 3. So we're going to plug that in to our volume formula for volume of a sphere. So then this is going to be V is equal to, and then when you multiply that all out and divide, you're going to get that that's 36 pi. So that would be E. So then now let's go to number 6. There are a total of 300 parking spaces at the mall. 8% of those parking spaces are reserved for electric cars. Of those parking spaces not reserved for electric cars, 35 allow parking for non-SUV cars only. How many spaces that are not reserved for electric cars are suitable for SUV cars? Okay, so let's break this down. So if 8% of the parking spaces are for electric cars, and we want not electric cars, then that means 92% are not for electric cars, not electric. So 92% are not electric. Now they said that there's 300 total parking spaces, so we're talking about 92%, 0.92 of 300. So 92% of 300 are not electric. So when we multiply that out, we get 276. So that's just talking about not for electric cars. But we want not for electric cars and that they're okay for SUV cars. Now they told us that 35 of these are not for SUV cars. We want to know how many of those are for SUV cars. So if this is the total amount of the not electric car spaces, and we take away the part that are not for SUVs, we would have the part left that are for SUVs. So that would be 276 minus 35, which equals 241. So then that would be G. Okay, let me just pour some more water, guys, 1 second. Okay, thanks for the likes, guys. So let's go to this one. It says, use the figure below to answer the next questions. Okay, so then number 7, it says, triangle FGH is shown in the graph above. What is the value of sine of H? Okay, so I'm going to start. I see that each of the squares is going up by 2 because 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 goes up by 2 each time. So this side would be 2, 4, 6, and then half of a square, which would be 7. And this would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. So this would be 24. Now again, if you know your Pythagorean threes, then you know that this side is 25. If you didn't know that, you could use Pythagorean theorem the long way, which is the longer way of doing this, which would be 7 squared plus 24 squared has to equal what this side is squared. And you just solve for that side. So now we're going to find out what is the sine of H. So that means that H is our reference angle. Now remember, SOHCAHTOA means that sine is going to be equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. So if we're looking at angle H, the opposite side is 7, and then 25 is going to be the hypotenuse. So this is equal to 7 over 25. Thank you, applesauce user, for being so kind. So then let's circle that for that one. So then we have cosine of f. So now you have to be careful. Your reference angle is f. So we're talking about this angle when we're doing cosine. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So when we're looking at this angle, the one that's next to it, but not the hypotenuse, is adjacent. So that would be 7 over the hypotenuse, which is 25. So this is equal to 7 over 25. Now we want to find tan of h. So now our reference angle is h. Tangent is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. So if we're looking at h for tan of h, opposite side would be 7 over the adjacent side is 24. So this would be 7 over 24. So now let's go to number 10. What is the value of secant of h? So secant of h is equal to 1 over the cosine of h. So let's find out what the cosine of h is. So the cosine of h is going to be equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So that would be adjacent 24 over the hypotenuse, which is 25. So if secant is the reciprocal of that, that would just be 25, over 24. You just flip it. So now we want cosecant of h. So that's going to equal to 1 over sine of h, the reciprocal of sine of h. We already solved what sine of h was. We said it was 7 over 25, so just flip it. And then we get 25 over 7. And if you need like a memory trick to remember this, like this is what helps me, is, ow, that hurt. I say like with the secant one, it starts with an S. So you would think like, I remember that they're reciprocals for secant and cosecant, but I say it's the opposite of what I would expect. So like the one that starts with S, secant, is the one that's the reciprocal of cosine. You would think it's sine because it starts with an S, but no, it's actually cosine. And I do the same thing with cosecant. It's the opposite of what you would think. So like it starts with a C, so you would think 1 over cosine, but it's actually 1 over sine. So then let's go to number 12. What is the value of cotangent of h? So this one's just the reciprocal of tangent, 1 over tan h. We solved for tan h already. It's 7 over 24, so just flip it, and you get 24 over 7 for that one. Circle that too. Okay, so now for the triangle, what is the value of sine of 90 minus h? So if we look at our angles, this is angle h, right? This is a 90-degree angle because it's straight. It's like perpendicular. These two lines are perpendicular. Like they make a perfect corner. So we have, if we want to know 90 minus h, and this is h, this angle is h. Remember, a triangle adds up to 180 degrees. So that means that this angle f plus angle h has to equal 90 degrees. So angle f has to, plus angle h equals 90 degrees because 90 plus 90 is 180. So that means if we're solving for angle f, it's going to be equal to 90 minus h. So we could also call this angle 90 minus h. So if we want to find the sine of 90 minus h, it's really asking us to find the sine of f. So the sine of f is just the opposite of the hypotenuse, so that's 24 over 25. So that would be the answer for that one. Oops, didn't close my circle. Okay, so then let's go to number 14. Given that the area of a square is 36 square units, what would be the sum of its diagonals? So let's do the area formula for a square. It just says that you take the square of the sides, and you would say that that's equal to the area, which is 36. So we could solve for what the side lengths are. So the side length would be equal to 6 because 6 squared is 36. So that means like if you're drawing this out, there would be 6, 6, 6 on each side because it's a square. And remember, like each of the corners is a right angle. So if we're talking about the diagonal, we're talking about this part right here. So you see how this splits up into two right triangles? So we could just do Pythagorean theorem to solve for what that other side is. You could also think about it as this is a special right triangle, the 45, 45, 90 one, but a lot of people don't see that, so I'm going to do it the Pythagorean theorem way. So Pythagorean theorem says that you're going to square each side. 6 squared plus 6 squared is equal to, we'll call this diagonal x, is equal to x squared. So then that's going to be 36 plus 36 is equal to x squared. So then 36 plus 36 is going to be 72 is equal to x squared. So if I want to solve for just x, I have to square root each side to get x by itself. So then x is equal to the square root of 72. 72, if we break it up into factors, is 36 times 2. So 36 is a perfect square. 6 times 6 is 36, so we could take out a 6 and leave a root 2. So the diagonal is equal to 6 root 2, but remember it said the sum of the diagonals. There's a diagonal there and there's a diagonal here. So we need to add those up or multiply by 2, either one. I'm just going to add them because people usually see that easier. So 6 root 2 plus 6 root 2, and that's going to be 12 groups of root 2, so 12 root 2, which is B. So let's go to number 15. What is the slope of the line? So with line stuff, just basically turn it back into y equals mx plus b format. If it's not already written with y by itself, the way you do that is just get y by itself. So move everything away from y. Start by subtracting 6x from each side. So then that's going to be 9y is equal to 12 minus 6x. Then get y by itself by dividing by 9 on each side. So then if you divide by 9, it's going to look like this. Now you can divide each of these by 9. So you could say it's 12 over 9 minus 6 ninths x, and then simplify this, because the number in front of x is the slope, the number being multiplied by x, negative 6 ninths. Simplify that by saying, okay, negative 6 ninths is my slope, and I know 3 is the biggest number that goes into the top and the bottom, so negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2, and then 9 divided by 3 is 3, so it would be negative 2/3, G. So then let's go to number 16. Emma, Fred, and George, Helen, and David are going to line up in a single file line. How many arrangements of students can there be in a single file line? So for number of arrangements, that would be 5 factorial. So then that would be 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So that's going to be equal to 120, which is E. So then let's do number 17. So it says for x is equal to 3 and y is equal to 15. If x varies directly with the square of y, then what is x when y is equal to 20? So varies directly, so the varying directly formula is y is equal to kx usually, but they said that x varies directly with the square of y. So that means that x is equal to k times y squared. So we can plug in 3 and 15 into this to find k, and then we'll have an equation that we could use for any x and y. So I could say x is 3 when y is 15, and then solve for k. So then this would be 3 and 225. So this would be 3 is equal to 225k. Then divide by 225 on each side, so then it's going to be 3 over 225 is equal to k. And then now we could plug that in for k in our equation up there. And we could say that we have 3 over 225 times whatever y squared is. And they're asking us, hey, when y is 20, what do you get for x? So all we have to do is plug in 20 for y and then find x. So it'd be x is equal to 3 over 225 times 20 squared. So x is equal to 3 over 225 times 20 squared is 400. So then we just have to multiply this. So then when we do, we're going to get 1,200 over 225, because this is the same thing as 400 over 1. So then we're going to divide by, let's try dividing by this. Dividing by 25 on each would go into each. That might not be the greatest one, but we'll see if we can divide it further. So 25 goes into the top and the bottom. So then that would be 48 over 9 when you divide by 25. So yeah, we could divide this further because 3 also still goes into each of these. So we could say 3 goes into each of those. So then when we divide by 3 on top and bottom, we get 16/3. So then that would be G. So then let's go to, can you do more arithmetic tomorrow? Yeah, the reason I'm not doing this I'm not doing like the math all out is because this is the ACT, so you get a calculator for this. But also if you want an arithmetic review video on my YouTube channel, it's AG Tutoring also, on YouTube, there's a playlist called Overcoming SAT Math for like the SAT book, and chapter 3, the 3 reviews chapter, has like an exercise on order of operations, on decimals and like decimal operations, fraction operations, and integer operations. So like you might want to check that out. Someone asked, am I a teacher? I used to be, but I'm not certified anymore because the way it works in Tennessee is like when you first get into teaching, you have to teach for 3 consecutive years before you get the permanent licensure, certification. So like I had the original one, but I quit after my first year and went into the private sector. So I didn't get to keep it. So then let's go to number 18. Given that x is a non-zero value, someone said I need movie recommendations. Okay, given that x is a non-zero value, the expression this is equivalent to. So then we're going to, this is just adding fractions. Just because there's variables involved doesn't mean it's still not just fractions. So when we add fractions, we have to make sure there's a common denominator. So how can we make a common denominator? Well, we can multiply by x right here, and then whatever you do at the bottom, you have to do the top. And that's going to give me x squared on the bottom. So now I have a common denominator and 2x on the top. So then when we have fractions, we have a common denominator. We just add the numerators, 3 plus 2x, and then on the bottom we keep the like denominator, x squared. So that would be, this one is just flipped, which is fine because you can add in any order. So D. I'm not a high school math teacher. No, I'm a tutor. So let's go to number 19. So it says if x is equal to -3, then what is the value of this? So all we have to do is everywhere we see an x, we plug in a -3. So 6 times -3 squared minus 7 times -3. So this is going to be 6 times -3 squared is just 9. And then -7 times -3 is going to be positive 21. So then 6 times 9 is going to be 54 plus 21, and that's going to be equal to 75. So that's going to be K. It can't, someone's saying, oh, you guys are just answering someone else's question. Okay, so let's go to number 20 now. So it says, which of the following could represent y is greater than or equal to 3? So with the inequality stuff, I like to say figure out the line first. So like it's a dotted line if it's these symbols without the line underneath. That's dotted. It's the solid line if it looks like this. If it has the solid line under, that's the solid one. So this is one of the solid ones, so we can automatically cross out A, and we can cross out B, and we just have the solid ones left. So now, after you figure that out, say, okay, treat this inequality like a y equals mx plus b equation. So pretend like it's just equals, y equals 3, to get what the line is. If you're graphing y equals 3, it wouldn't look like this. This would be x equals 3, so not that one. Y equals 3 would just be a horizontal line going through 3, so it has to be either D or E. Now, the shading part is determined by the inequality symbol. That's where this is important. So the inequality symbol says that y is greater than or equal to 3. So when the y is greater than or equal to the other number, you have to shade above. So this says that I need to shade above, so it has to be E. So then let's go to, also you could just plug this in on your calculator too and stuff, like if you know how to do that, just saying. So let's go to number 21, and hold on, actually, I forgot to check something. When I do this, I try to do edits at the same time to make sure that like my key is correct. So hold on. That's good. Good. Yep, good. Okay, so then let's go to 21. So then let's go to 21. It says, assume 1 British pound equals $1.55. Assume 1 euro equals $1.20. Andrew took $620 US and converted them to British pounds. While in Britain, he spent 88 of his British pounds and converted his remaining pounds into euros. While visiting Europe, he spent 120 euros. Upon returning to the US, he converted his remaining euros to US dollars. How many US dollars did Andrew have left over from his trip? Okay. So let's talk about this in steps. So at first he has 620 US dollars. And then it says that it's converted to British pounds. So 1 British pound is equal to $1.55. So we could say $1.55 is related to the 1 British pound. I like to do it in like terms of stoichiometry because it's like easy. You don't have to like think about it. You can just cross cancel the units, like the US dollars cancel. So then you're just left with the B British pounds that you want. And what you do with this is like you set it up so that the units you don't want cross cancel and you're just left with what you do want, the British pounds right there, which I'm representing with B. And then you just multiply and divide. So like 620 times 1 is just 620, and then divided by 1.55, which would just be 400 British pounds. So there's 400 British pounds, and then it says that he spent 88 British pounds. So now we're going to subtract 88 British pounds. And what we're going to get there is going to be 312 British pounds. Also, guys, if you want to see it slower, just remember I have a YouTube channel, so then you can, I upload these so you could slow it down afterwards. Because YouTube has a setting in it where, like, if you click the little settings button on the video, you could slow down or speed up videos. So then let's now put that we have 312 British pounds. And then it says after they spent those 88 pounds, they converted the remaining pounds into euros. So now let's convert it into euros. So here's where a lot of people mess up on this problem. They don't see the relationship between British pounds and euros because there isn't one, technically. You kind of have to work for it. So We know that we have British pounds, so let's look for a relationship with British pounds. Well, 1 British pound is $1.55 US dollars. So 1 British pound is $1.55 US dollars. So then the British pounds would cancel. That's good because we don't want those. But now we want to make sure we're being asked to find euros, converting it to euros. Well, I know 1 euro is related to $1.20 American. So I could say I'm going to cross-cancel the American units, $1.20 American for 1E, which represents euro. So now I just multiply, divide across. So 312 times 1.55 divided by 1 times 1 divided by 1.20, and that's going to be 403 euros. And then it says after you convert it to euros, he spent 120 euros. So then we're going to subtract 120 euros. And when we subtract 120 euros, that's going to be 283 euros. So now 283 euros, and then upon returning to the U.S., he converted his remaining euros to US dollars. So how many US dollars does he have? So we need to now turn 283 euros into US dollars. So remember, 1 euro equates to $1.20 US. So that would allow us to cross out the euros if we write it like that. So then we're going to multiply, divide. So 283 times $1.20 divided by 1. And that's going to be equal to $339.60. So then that's going to be H. Okay, so then let's go to 22. So for 22, it says, in a class of 25 students, 15 students are members of the chess club, 12 students are members of the debate club, and 10 students are members of both clubs. How many students in the class are not members of either club? Okay, so what we could do here is we can talk about how many members are in each of the clubs, and then subtract the ones that are in both the clubs, because those are the people that we would double count if we kept them involved. So then what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, there's 15 in the chess club, and there's 12 in the, debate club? Yeah, 12 in the debate club. So this is in each club. And then we're going to take away the 10 students that are in both of the clubs so that we don't count them twice by accident. And that's going to give us that this is 17 in the clubs. This is how many are in the clubs. We want to know how many are not in the clubs. So then how many are in the clubs would be 17. So then if there's 25 in the class, then we would say 25 minus 17. And that's going to equal that there are 8 not in the clubs. So then we have D as our answer. So let's go to 23. Given the sequence right here, what is the 14th term rounded to the nearest hundred? So this is just multiplying by negative 1.5 each time. R is equal to negative 1.5. So it's a geometric sequence because we're multiplying by something each time. And so we want to find out what A of 14 is. So A14 is what we're looking for, the 14th term. Remember, for a geometric sequence, the formula is that A of n is equal to A1 times R to the n minus 1. We know R is negative 1.5, so we plug that in. A1 is just the first term in the sequence, so that would be 3. So if we want to find the 14th term, we would plug in 14 for n. 3 is the first term, A of 1. We know the number we're multiplying each time is negative 1.5. And then we would say that n we know is 14, so 14 minus 1 there. And then we would just simplify this. So we get A of 14 is equal to 3 times negative 1.5 to the 13th power. So then you would just plug this all into your calculator. And it says that we're rounding to the nearest hundredth. So this would be approximately negative 583.85852, yada, yada, yada. And we're rounding to the nearest hundredth. So the hundredth place is this one right here. This is the 10th place, the hundredth place, thousandth place. So this is the hundredths. So that means if we're rounding, we have to look at our neighbor, the 8. If our neighbor is 5 or above, we round up. So that means that this has to round up to a 6. So it should be negative 583.86. So that would be H.